Good afternoon. This is the Ambassador GBS News at 1, and I'm your Ambassador Jennifer Macau. In a world full of commotion, stories can be forcefully boxed into premeditated narratives, boxed and then labeled as truth. But what is true? GBS Ambassador will be here to help you take away the noise and the misinterpretation that seek to pull us apart, giving you hope, happiness, and a pure mindset across Africa and the world at large. I'm your Ambassador Jennifer Macau, and this is the Ambassador GBS Global News. But first, there is trouble in Rwanda as Rwandan President Paul Kagame criticized what he perceived as the United States' ambiguity regarding the 1994 genocide against the country's minority, that is the Tutsis we are talking about. And Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Monday announced plans for a ground offensive in the southern Gaza city. We are talking of Rafah, stating that the date has been set for the operation. We'll also get to talk about the Congo girls who've been taking the initiative to learn the Hapkido martial arts. And it came to pass the much anticipated celestial marvel of a total solar eclipse that happened on Monday, captivating the attention of millions of people across North Africa, turning daylight to swagger, leaving the spectators in wonder. And the police recovered a cargo ship hijacked by gangs in the Haiti, drawing a dramatic showdown between the police and the gangs in the Haiti on Saturday in efforts to recover a hijacked cargo ship laden with rice. The mission was successful though, as the rice was recovered. We have this and more lined up for you in the Ambassador News at 1 p.m. Stay tuned with us. And as we get to the start, in a recent development, Rwandan President Paul Kagame criticized what he perceived as the United States' ambiguity regarding the 1994 genocide against the country's minority, the Tutsis. The criticism followed by remarks made by the Secretary of State, that is Antony Blinken, who failed to fail the explicitly mentioning the targeting of the Tutsi ethnic group in a recent social media post. Here is more. Rwanda's President Paul Kagame on Monday stated that he was concerned about what he saw as failure of the United States to characterize the 1994 massacres as a genocide against the country's minority Tutsis. His comments come after U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, in a post on the social media platform X, failed to specify that the Tutsi ethnic group was targeted.
When it is the day of commemoration, which is 7th of April, can you be kind enough to commemorate with us and stop there? And there are 365 days in a year. Give us that day of 7th of April, commemorate with us, and then you can have the rest 364 days blaming us every day for everything you don't like about us.
Many Rwandans criticized Blinken's comment on Sunday, which read, and I quote, "We mourn the many thousands of Tutsis, Hutus and Twas, and others whose lives were lost during the 100 days of unspeakable violence. The 7th April marked the start of 30 years ago of a 100-day killing spree by extremists from the Hutu ethnic group, in which members of the Tutsi minority and the Hutu moderates were slaughtered." Kagame stated that he believed he had reached an agreement with the U.S. authorities for them not to voice any criticism on the day of the anniversary. On Monday, Kagame stated that the M23 are fighting for the rights of the Congolese Tutsis, with at least 100,000 of them now seeking refuge in Rwanda after fleeing attacks in the eastern Congo.
Why are we being accused as Rwanda of supporting M23? And I'm saying even those who accuse us, actually I should accuse them of not supporting M23, because it is as if they agree with the injustice that is being done to this community. Otherwise, if you didn't agree with that injustice, you would be actually raising questions. Why are these people of M23 being treated like this? Why are we having 100,000 refugees here in Rwanda?
Jennifer Makau, GBS News. And the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Monday announced plans for a ground offensive in the South Gaza city of Rafah, stating that the date had been set for the operation. Netanyahu alighted on the necessity of the action for achieving what he termed as a complete victory over the Hamas. Here is more. Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Monday stated that the date is set for a ground offensive in the southern Gaza city of Rafah. In a video statement on Monday, Netanyahu stated the Rafah operation is essential for a complete victory over the Hamas.
Today, I received a detailed report on the talks in Cairo. We are working all the time to achieve our goals, primarily the release of all our hostages and achieving a complete victory over Hamas. This victory requires entry into Rafah and the elimination of the terrorist battalions there. It will happen. There is a date.
The prospective invasion has alarmed the international community, including the United States, who stated the roughly 1.4 million civilians seeking their shelter there would be in danger. The U.S. President Joe Biden administration stated that they had not seen Israeli plans but remained opposed.
We have made clear to Israel that we think a full-scale military invasion of Rafah would have an enormously harmful effect on those civilians and that it would ultimately hurt Israel's security. So it's not just a question of Israel presenting a plan to us. We have made clear to them that we think that there is a better way to achieve what is a legitimate goal, which is to degrade and dismantle and defeat the Hamas battalions that still remain in Rafah.
Netanyahu renewed pledge to invade came as Israeli negotiators were in Cairo discussing international efforts to broker a ceasefire deal with the Hamas. The war, now on its 7th month, has killed more than 33,000 Palestinians, mostly women and children, according to the health authorities, and displaced most of the territory's 2.3 million people and left vast swaths of the beleaguered Gaza Strip uninhabitable. And in the heart of the Republic of Congo, a new form of empowerment has been taking shape as teenage girls flock to learn at the Hapkido, at the center of the bustling city of the Pont-Nord. Introduced just 5 years ago, Hapkido has captured the attention of many, including trainer Amel Matanzala, who attested to the unique appeal among the martial arts landscape in the country. Here is more on the same.
Bien qu'il y a plusieurs
Although there's several martial arts in our country, there's also Hapkido.
qui viennent s'ajouter.
But there are always differences. That's why anyone who's seen Hapkido practice is interested in it.
Ceux qui ont vu la pratique de l'Hapkido s'y intéressent.
For the young girls training at the center de reference, the motivation transcends from mere physical activity. It is all about reclaiming a sense of security in the face of rising threats posed by the central gangs, known as the Black Babies.
Je pratique le Hapkido tout d'abord.
I practice Hapkido firstly to know how to defend myself, especially with the situations that are happening today, the attacks by the Black Babies, and because girls have become easy targets.
Sont devenus des cibles faciles.
These groups, notorious for their heinous act, including rape and murder, have made these girls particularly vulnerable. Similarly, Sophia Kangu, another student, recounted her experiences of the verbal and the physical harassment, which drove her to seek the self-defense training.
It's because I've been the victim of verbal or physical harassment by men on several occasions, and above all, I didn't know how to defend myself against them. And today I can say that Hapkido has helped me a lot, because at least I know how to control the people who come to attack me. Thanks to the self-defense we learn.
This newfound confidence isn't just limited to individual encounters. It is a collective resilience that sends a clear message that anyone who dares to threaten these girls will face a formidable resistance. Through Hapkido, these young women are not only learning self-defense, but also reclaiming their agency and asserting their right of safety in a world that is fraught with danger.
Une fois, j'ai été victime d'un harcèlement à l'arrêt de bus.
I was once the victim of harassment at the bus stop. I was passing by and a man was there. I don't know if he was courting me, but I didn't pay attention to what he wanted. So he held my hand and grabbed me really hard, so I had to defend myself. I got into a defensive position that allowed me to detach his hand, and I left. And he asked himself, she's a girl, but how did she do it? Of course I'm a girl, but I know how to defend myself against that kind of person.
What you watched is just not taekwondo or karate, it is Hapkido. And the ladies are ready. When you face them, be ready for the consequences. And now as we continue, there was a dramatic showdown between the police and the gangs in Haiti on Saturday, which resulted in the recovery of hijacked a cargo ship that was laden with rice. The Haiti National Police Agency engaged in a 5-hour gun battle with the gangs of the coast of the capital, Port-au-Prince, to recover the hijacked ship named Majali. Apologies. According to the authorities, the ship was hijacked by the members of two gangs identified as the 5 Seconds and the Taliban gang. Here on the same. Haiti's National Police Agency stated that it recovered a hijacked cargo ship laden with rice following a gun battle with gangs on Saturday off the coast of the capital Port-au-Prince. According to a statement from authorities, 2 police officers were injured and a determined number of gang members were killed in the 5-hour shootout. The police added that those responsible for the hijacking were members of the 2 gangs, namely the 5 Seconds and the Taliban gang, who seized the transport ship Majali on Thursday as it departed the port of Verroch. Local media radio Telemetro Monet reported that the gangs kidnapped everyone aboard the ship and stole a sum of 10,000 sacks of rice out of the 60,000 sacks it was carrying. Gang violence in Haiti has escalated since February, with the underfunded police department struggling to quell the attacks. The gunmen also began targeting the key government infrastructures. The gangs have also made several attempts to take over the National Palace in a final push to gain a complete control of the capital. On Monday, the police ordered the evacuation of the Camp de Mars area near the National Palace in downtown Port-au-Prince as heavy gunfire erupted nearby. The country's Prime Minister Ariel Henry on March 12 agreed to resign once a transitional presidential council was established. Jennifer Makau, GPS News. And that international news brings us to our first break. There's more coming up for you. We'll talk about the Pope who called for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. And we'll also talk about dozens of protesters who rallied in Jerusalem on Sunday, demanding for a release of the hostages in Gaza. And we'll also get to see the monkey man. Who is he? You'll get to know why. And we'll also get to see the Biden's administration officials on Monday who unveiled a new plan to pardon the students' loan debt. And we'll talk about the World Health Day, which was observed on Monday, April 7th, and what was the focus of the day. We have this and more lined up for you shortly after the break. May you stay tuned with us.
Hi guys, welcome to another amazing episode of the Youth Hub, the show that gets your groove on.
A cat meows. Hata ile shena madogi ita meow.
What a man can do, a woman can do better.
2 types of men utapatana na wao. Mtu akileta gari like ni dem ndo anataka kunitengenezea gari? Hapana.
And what I'm earning, it depends. Wewe kama mwanaume, you are the one marrying me, not me marrying you.
Many people will say, will have this perspective of it's feminine modeling. It's a two-way traffic.
Hi guys, welcome to an amazing episode of the Youth Hub, the show that gets your groove on. I am yours, Rachel Gambo. I don't know.
See, maybe he was shocked. Wanaiangalia sana. It's like a priority. Tumejenga mansion and everything. And mind you, tulikuja Kamwiste. I don't think if the government... I'm not recognized.
The one delivered. Alikuwa ni youth. No, actually she was a
married woman.
About a certain church. I mentioned Jida. I think I ever mentioned it somewhere, maybe in another show or something. This certain church inakwanga to stao.
Hydrogen. No, wait. Moto. Nimezaliwa Maju, Boston.
Siku yake peke yake.
And Pope Francis recently renewed his call for a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. During the general audience, the pontiff of the Catholic Church expressed his deep concern concerning the death of the volunteers from the NGO world, the Central Kitchen, once again calling for an access of humanitarian aid for the exhausted and the suffering civilians. The former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert stated that the killing of the aid workers in Gaza was a mistake, while the head of the European diplomacy, Joseph Borrell, condemned the incident, calling it an investigation. The number of volunteers called in the Palestinian enclave is presently around 200, and the deadliest ever crisis for the humanitarian workers.
Purtroppo continuano a giungere triste notizie.
Unfortunately, we continue to get sad news from the Middle East. I once again renew my firm request for the immediate ceasefire in the Gaza Strip.
Nella striscia di Gaza.
I express my deep regret for the volunteers killed while they were involved in the distribution of humanitarian aid in Gaza. I pray for them and their families. I renew my appeal so that the exhausted and suffering civilian population may be allowed to get access to humanitarian aid and that the hostages are immediately released.
While we hope for an immediate ceasefire, there seems to be a call of ceasefire from everywhere. We hope for the best between Israel and Gaza. And also thousands of protesters rallied in Jerusalem on Sunday, demanding the release of around 130 hostages still held in Gaza after 6 months of the Israeli war against Hamas. It was on October 7th when Hamas gunmen burst into Israel during a Holocaust on a memorial killing not less than 1,200 people in their homes, army bases, and along roads, while inflicting sexual violence on some of their victims. Ivy Maven with more report on this.
Thousands of protesters rallied in Jerusalem on Sunday, demanding the release of around 130 hostages still held in Gaza after 6 months of Israel's war against Hamas. Hamas gunmen burst into Israel on October 7th, killing 1,200 people in their homes, on army bases, along the roads, at an outdoor rave, and inflicting sexual violence on some of the victims.
Bring them home alive today! Bring them home alive today!
The gunmen also seized 253 hostages, including children and elderly, civilians and soldiers. Around half of the victims were released as part of a brief truce in the late November. Talks to secure another ceasefire that will include the release of dozens more of the remaining hostages resumed in Egypt on Sunday, but some hostages' families are worried, with previous rounds of negotiations having gone nowhere and some of their hostages dying in captivity.
Right now, it's 184 days in captivity. It can be. The world should condemn it. The world should stand and to be with Israel against Hamas and to do anything that they can do to help us. And for our government, we demand them to do things as soon as possible and not to waste time.
We're here today because we want everybody to be aware that this is still happening, and we're still hoping that its solution will be like any minute. We don't have time. Nama has no time.
Some hostages' parents on Sunday's rally called on Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to do more to bring their hostages home. Speakers kept largely messages apolitical, focusing on their pain and the urgent need to get their loved ones.
And then I got a phone call at 10:14, starting with the words, "Mommy, I was shot, I'm bleeding, and I think I'm gonna die."
No politics, no, just hearts, just being together, because those people could have been my people, your people, the government people. It doesn't matter. We are one state, one soul, and we need to be united. First of all, to bring everyone together. Afterwards, we will have time for everything. But this is the first thing we need to do.
Over the past weeks, protests against Netanyahu's government have intensified, with critics charging that the veteran leader has been dragging his feet in securing a deal. Netanyahu's cabinet has faced widespread criticism over the security failure of October 7th, which was Israel's deadliest single day and the worst attack on the Jews since the Holocaust. Ivy Maven, GBS News.
Well, we wish the best for these families, hoping that the hostages may be released. And Biden administration officials on Monday unveiled the details of a new plan to forgive students of a loan debt, suggesting that millions of Americans could start experiencing debt relief the soonest. This being the President Joe Biden's second attempt to implement broad student loan forgiveness after his first plan was struck down by the Supreme Court. Ivy Maven with more on the same.
President Joe Biden administration officials on Monday unveils the details of a new plan to forgive student loan debt, suggesting that millions of Americans could start seeing debt relief as soon as this fall. It is President Joe Biden's second attempt to implement broad student loan forgiveness after his first attempt plan was struck down by the Supreme Court. The president is set to travel to Wisconsin, which is a key swing state, on Monday to announce the plan. The new policies, when combined with the narrower actions already taken by Biden's administration to cancel student debt, would benefit more than 30 million Americans, according to a fact sheet provided by the White House. That means that nearly 70% of all federal student loan borrowers could see their debt reduced or fully cancelled due to Biden's policies. But first, the plans must be finalized, a process that could take months and must withstand any potential legal challenges. And new student loan forgiveness proposal could set up another fight with the Republicans after several conservative-led states and groups sued the Biden's administration over the first student forgiveness program, arguing that the executive branch had overstepped its authority. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said that the President Biden will use every tool available to cancel student loan debt for as many borrowers as possible, no matter how many times Republicans elected officials try to stand on his way. After the Supreme Court rejected Biden's first plan last year, the president vowed to pursue another pathway to deliver student loan debt relief, and since then, the Department of Education has been conducting a formal and lengthy process known as negotiated rulemaking to develop a new student loan forgiveness program. It is a different process from what the Biden's administration used in the first attempt to provide sweeping loan forgiveness, which would have cancelled up to $20,000 in student loan debt for borrowers earning $125,000 or less a year. The new plan targets specific groups of borrowers, and if implemented as proposed, borrowers could see relief if they fall into any of the following categories. Those who have balances bigger than what they originally borrowed due to interest, already qualify for student loan forgiveness under existing programs but do not have applied, who have entered repayment at least 20 years ago, those who enrolled in low financial value programs which left students in debt but without good job prospects. Finally, those experiencing financial hardships. The new proposals unveiled Monday must go through a public comment period, and then afterward reviewing the comments, the Department of Education will publish a final version of the rule. Ivy Maven, GBS News.
And have you ever heard of the Monkey Man? Probably yes or no. We are talking of none other than Dev Patel, who has been lately set for the theaters as he highlighted the universal themes of Monkey Man at the action thrillers in the Los Angeles premiere on Wednesday. The Oscar-winning award actor, known for making feature directional and for his screenwriting debut, also stared at the kid made as a living working in an underground fight club while seeking to avenge his mother an horrific death by infiltrating a light in the network of Mumbai, thus blending action with social commentary. Let's watch.
When I was a boy, they took everything from me. He must become...
There's a fair few issues we touch on, violence against women, the caste system, police brutality. But, in a way, I think these issues, though it's kind of, you don't need to look far to look at cases of police brutality or, I think there's every society faces a sort of caste system. There is an untouchable in every sense of the word. And this, for me, the true untouchables are the kind of elite at the top that, the underdogs can't get near, and that's where this story was born. I wanted to create a kind of, he wasn't going to win the day,
I keep saying to Dev, it's like there's grace that helped us through this one.
I do think that people, I want this story to be something that every human being can resonate with and not really a draw for just one, a brown person or an Asian person or whatever. But having said that, I do think this is Dev's sort of like renaissance in a way. I'm proud of him. It's almost like this.
And as the world observed the World Health Day on Sunday, 7th April, the focus was on a major pressing issue, and that was air pollution, with the World Health Organization underscoring it as a paramount threat to the public health. In Nairobi, Kenya, at the Dandora dump site, where scavengers eke out of a living amidst the toxic fumes from burning waste to the struggle of survival, as intertwined with their fight for clean air, with the WHO advocating for a strong and a bold policy around the use of clean fuel and its energies. Let's get more details on the same.
We face a lot of problems here. For example, the smoke nowadays is a lot. Even breathing is a problem, and you cannot see who's in front of you. But I have nowhere to go, and nothing else.
The toxic fumes pollution now extends beyond the dump sites, as contamination from heavy traffic plagues the capital and other major cities, contributing to respiratory issues among the Kenyan residents. Dr. Duba stressed on the importance of government intervention in bolstering healthcare infrastructure and systems, particularly for the vulnerable populations.
It is fantastic that the World Health Organization is advocating for access to health, universal access to health, has identified air pollution as a major driver of ill health. But this requires a lot of regulation and backing from governments. So commitment to invest in health infrastructure, what we call health systems thinking and health systems strengthening, to bring so many resources together to try and create proper access to care for especially poor populations. There is an initiative that is going on to move women from cooking with charcoal and firewood in Kenya to try and use cleaner fuels.
Pollutants in the environment also affect the respiratory system, hence distressing the cardiovascular system, which can lead to a premature death, according to Dr. Eunice Omesa, with the WHO now advocating for strong and bold policies around the use of clean fuel and energies.
Air pollution is caused by emissions from vehicles that burn fossil fuels, also from greenhouses, as well as the garbages. These pollutants in the environment affects the respiratory system, affects the cardiovascular system, which might also lead to premature death. WHO is advocating for strong and bold policies around the use of clean fuel and energies.
With the theme, My Health, My Right, World Health Day served as a poignant reminder of the urgency to address health disparities, especially regarding air pollution. However, for those dependent on scavenging at Dandora dump site, the dream of a clean air remains distant amidst their struggle for survival. And that news brings us to the end of our Ambassador GBS Global News. It's been a pleasure having you on board with us, joining us to the end. And on our next, we are going to check on Israel, how the offensive will be solved between the two nations. Will they find a solution? Will Israel be able to tackle or even to fight according to the Israeli ground offensive that Netanyahu spoke about? We'll also talk about Rwanda, the asylum seekers, an issue that has been pending between Rwanda and the US that needs to be solved. You cannot afford to miss out on the coming events. I've been your Ambassador Jennifer Macau, and I'm looking forward to seeing you at the GBS Global News, The Ambassador, tomorrow, same time, same place, from Monday to Friday at 1 p.m. And may you all have a wonderful and a splendid afternoon.